Hey folks, welcome to the Leeds View podcast for the second podcast of this week. We do these twice a week, as well as daily Leeds United news and a transfer story at the weekend to wrap everything up. We're available on YouTube, as well as on the Sports Social Podcasting Network and all of your audio platforms. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by subscribing to the channel on YouTube, following us on the audios, or giving us a channel rating or like. I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea Russo to have a bit of a chat about credibility in journalism and a lot of links from Leeds from Italian journalists. There is no better man to tap into to get a little bit of an insight into all of the noise around Suzuki, as well as Lloyd Kelly and a few other thoughts this week. But first things first, as usual, we'll check in. Andrea, how are you doing, mate?
Good, mate. It's good to be back here with you as always. I'm doing well. I've come to terms, I'm just enjoying the games of the World Cup, despite Italy not being in that, I'm rooting against all our old rivals, because we need to keep those 4 stars, so Germany, of course, have been eliminated. The Netherlands have been eliminated. The teams that are trying to play catch up, some of them have already been eliminated, so we need to root against them, to defend the world record of Italy of 4 World Cups. That's the only thing that has remained to us, in order to just defend our history. That's the only thing remain. But yeah, excited about what's happening around Leeds. With the links with Harry Wilson from recent weeks. Very honestly sad about Pascal Struijk. Probably needs to happen. We were prepared for that because of PSR, and especially, it was talk in the recent months. It could have been a one. Sacrificed eventually. We know how it unfolded. Good luck to him. A lot of good memories. I think it would be a huge miss, honestly, because it's difficult to replace a physical player with a good vision, with a good build-up play, also at the back of playing defender like him. I'm pretty okay, honestly, with the price tag around with the 20 million. But I understand those that are saying, okay, probably we should have got more, But yeah, we need to consider the fact that it was in the last year of his contract. I think realistically the right price is around 25, but it's still a good price for him. He's not that young anymore. He's edging towards the peak of his career. Made a good choice going to Brighton, but yeah, I still sad because now people won't say anymore that I look like him out of the blue.
I was gonna say you're gonna have to stay out of Brighton for a while now in case you start getting stopped on the street randomly.
Yeah, I need to go to to see the seagulls and see the sea, but yeah, the sea down there, unfortunately, it's not good. We have better beaches and seas, the Adriatic, the Mediterranean in Italy. So I think I might stay here and enjoy these more, despite being very, very pale in terms of skin color,
You're the only pale Italian I know. I only know a couple of Italians, but you're the palest of all of them. Yeah, I should look. Come here. I'm practically transparent. I'm so pale. Don't worry about it. Right, we've got stuff to talk about. We talked about Pascal. We may as well start off with Pascal. So, the Athletic and everyone else saying 18 million fixed fee plus 2 million in add-ons. It's slightly more than the Brighton side are saying, which is 15. We spoke to Adam Pope about it, and Adam said he believes the deal to be a 20 million pound deal as well. So all of the noise at least come. And as I said in the news today, we'll find out when the finances come out, January 28th, well, who was telling the truth on this. But if it is 18, let's assume it is 18 for now, even if it's 15, that's a fixed price up front, which means Leeds have got that 18 million quid to play around with right now, rather than it being amortized over a 5-year period for maybe 25 million, but broken down more. So it gives them a few quid in their pocket. The flip side to that is how much is a left-footed, decent Premier League level left-sided centre-back cost you in today's money, and can you get one in for a better deal than you've just lost Pascal Struijk?
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, it's tough because you might find some good players around that price if you want to reinvest straight away that money, But we know how inflated the market is. Look at how much Elliot Anderson has cost City. That's after
this
a good
World
season
Cup.
with. Yeah, it's and even players. Another example talking about centre backs is Mbokazi from South Africa. I don't think he can play in the Premier League right now. He's unfortunately he's a very good player, but World Cup. Maybe People have been watching football for a while may remember Karel Proborski when he was signed by United after Euro 1996, because he had a hell of a tournament. Everybody thought, oh, that's the next big player. Even Azzedine Hunay after the 2022 World Cup when he got signed.
That's the one.
By
That's the
Marseille,
one, yeah.
one linked to Leeds too. Another player that then went to Panathinaikos, then to Girona. Yeah, usually there's one or two players that are blown out of proportion, with the World Cup. And in this case, it's probably Mbokasi. He's very good, but he's just been tested in the MLS and in the World Cup against Mexico, Czechia, South Korea, and Canada. So I want to see him against tougher opposition. But yeah, I think Eredivisie, Belgian League, that's Ligue 1 too, might be his level. But talking about players that might sign for Leeds with that around that range, I think considering the Wolves have been relegated, I still think Ladislav Krejci might be a good fit for us, honestly, down that side, because people think he's soft looking at just at the games against us, with that scrap against Aronson, I think, if I remember correctly,
He fell over, yeah.
Yeah,
but Brendan.
Yeah, and then he went down, but he's a very good player, I think. He's been he's reliable, versatile, very similar to Struijk in a certain sense, because he played for Czechia and even for when he was at Sparta.
He's very good for them.
Yeah, he's versatile because he can play as a defensive midfielder too, and also in a back three, back four, he's very reliable. Of course, probably when he made that big move from Sparta Prague to Girona, he was a wonder kid at the time. People expected a lot from him. Didn't really work out for him. In Spain, took time to adapt, and then he moved to Wolverhampton. He was a very peculiar season. Let's just stay there, for Wolves this season. But I think there's a player there. Other examples, another player that got relegated, last season, Kulierakis from Wolfsburg, another player that I like. There's plenty of good players that I think you can get around that price of 20, 25, probably 20, Kulierakis, the Greek centre back, another good one. So yeah, I think if you find the right profile, one that can be physical, play in a back three, of course, and also on a back four, because I still haven't figured out if we're going to play in a back three or on a back four, looking at the links that the players have been linked with us. But if you can get that profile very similar to Struijk, I think we can remain to the back three and continue to build on the formation that brought us to a good success this last season. Yeah. No, I need to put up to that. Yeah,
I'm the same. I'm the same this season. Last season, the middle. I don't know where we are anymore. But yeah, the same thing. It's in. Yeah, look, there's a lot of names out there. Latte, who's the free agent from Union Berlin's been mentioned, but again, nothing.
Too.
Yeah, good player. Yeah, and of all the players that. Ironically, we've been talking about Danilo Duki for so long, and it ends up being his centre back partner that all of a sudden pops up on the radar, and then he's a free agent, so you do a decent deal there. But it's not an easy one to get right. I mean, you could argue that Leeds probably need two just to make sure they've got cover in case someone gets injured. So, Andy Cousins was on the podcast last night. He'd like John Stones. He thinks Leeds should go and get John Stones because he can play on the left. Now he's a right footer, but he can play on the left. But I think Leeds will look for something bespoke. The way Daniel Farke likes to play out from the back, there's a certain channels that he likes those centre backs to offer to rotate. To work in, and I think a left footer is exactly what he wants on that side. So look, and Daniel Farke wants what he wants this year, and he's deserved getting what he wants this year. So we'll see. On Krejci, this is £26 million to Wolves from Girona. And that's only just gone through now because of the obligation to purchase. They're rumored to want 40 million for him now, immediately after just spending 26, which for a relegated side, and they're not exactly cutting their cloth like a relegated side. They're not, there's no wholesale. They're not selling right now. So I don't know what their plan is, but where do you sit on that transfer fee as well? Because I don't see anybody paying a championship club £40 million for a centre back. England just scored. Yeah. We're recording this during the England game. Sorry, England just scored.
Yeah. I did the notification next to me and I said, ooh.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, Harry Kane.
Yeah. Number 12. Sorry, transfer fee for Ladislav Krejci.
I think it's too much, honestly, especially after that World Cup, especially after the World Cup. And I think another thing can be if you want to get more, because I don't think, they didn't have a good World Cup, Czechia. They look very disjointed, I think along with an option to buy around 30, At least you give them like we did, with certain players when we went down. There were players who had those relegation clauses. But I am looking also at Fulham when they went down. Other clubs that went down, they had players that didn't want to play in the Championship. They went out on loan, and the acquiring club had an option to buy with a substantial fee, because right now his value is not 40. Absolutely,
No.
it's at least the peak might be 30. I think, because you were a part of a defense that conceded way tons of goals left and right. I think, again, context is needed. Even Bueno, the Spanish fullback, is another good player there. But they are not worth their real value now, because the value decreases after relegation. And they had a very normal season, very average season, all of them, because there was no guidance. They changed managers. The key players left. They were left with the basketball player, Tolu. That's the nickname I gave him 2 years ago when people said, "Oh, we should get that player from Genk." I said, "Oh, the basketball player," because he looks like a basketball player. I'm sorry, when he plays.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, Diogo Leite actually is a good shout. It's another one that I mentioned, on Twitter, ex-Twitter, when I made a list of the possible links. I think it was supposed, because it was known months ago that, like Duki, he wasn't renewing his contract with Union Berlin. He was linked very heavily for the summer with Lazio, but I don't think they're getting him now. I don't think they are. And I think because of the experience of the player, he's not an up-and-coming player like a youngster, that you made an investment for 4 or 5 years. Because of that, his value in terms of interest is not that high. So I think it might be one in our range if we're looking to build on that, because Harry Wilson is absolutely a great signing.
Yeah.
I didn't think we could manage that after the season he had, So I think if we're starting on the right foot with Harry Wilson, that shows commitment, that shows ambition, that can help attracting also other free agents, that might see, okay, maybe you're earning more in terms of salary because we are in the second season in the Premier League. Comparing to other clubs, we may offer you more, but you are getting into an ambitious project. You're going to be a starter now on the left-hand side, You will play in the Premier League from, let's be clear, Union were in the Champions League 3 years ago. Now they had very difficult seasons, So he was involved with Portugal. He was called up quite a few times when they were in the Champions League, with the Portuguese squad. Now he's not being called up anymore. So it's now he needs to readjust, and you can pass the opportunity to play in the Premier League. But yeah, we need to act very early, with that. We need to act very early because he's a free agent. So plenty of interest for sure.
Yeah, it's Leeds acting early in the transfer market. We'll have to wait and see if that actually materialises. It's still relatively early because the contracts are expired as of today, which we're still waiting to hear about. Carl Darlow, apparently Everton are having a bit of a sniff around him as well. Hasn't been announced that he signed a new deal. So that's a goalkeeper. And speaking about a goalkeeper and a player that's had a very good World Cup, so enough reasons there not to sign the player, is Suzuki, who has been heavily linked with Leeds over the past month or so, probably more so in the last 2 weeks. Gianluca Di Marzio got involved in it this morning, and since he's put out a tweet this morning, since then it's gone from Leeds have got concrete interest to Leeds have agreed a fee and agreed personal terms, and it's done. There are a lot of 53 follower accounts that are putting that kind of stuff out, but the original story came from Gianluigi Longari, and the follow-up has now come from Gianluca Di Marzio, who does carry a little bit of weight, it should be said, in terms of when he does put a message out there. We've been here before. I've been saying this for a few weeks. So this is where I wanted to get your insight and your expertise on this when it comes to Italian journalism during a transfer window. Last season, Leeds were linked to about 6 players that were playing in Italy. None of them ended up coming to Leeds United. And I'm excluding Jacobial in this because he was the only one that came from a UK source on this. There's very little coming out of the UK or the Leeds media around Suzuki. Graham Smyth just said it's an ambitious move if they move, but there was an if there. How credible are we talking here with Longari, and how credible is Di Marzio at this moment in time, and how much faith could a Leeds fan? And again, I'm not going to hang you out to dry here. This is just your opinion as things stand right now. everything can obviously change in football, and you never know, he might end up in a Leeds shirt. But as it stands right now.
Well, the first thing for me, the first disclaimer, when you look at Italy, it's was there any report locally by the local press that covers that specific club, in this case Parma? I've seen in the last couple of, let's say, last week, 10 days, I've checked Parma X is next door to me, because we have a great rivalry with them. Parma and Reggio, of course. Even the cheese, Parma Reggio. I don't know if you know about that.
I do.
But they are the rivals of Reggiana, so they are next door, basically. I can have a very quick access to the local press there, and there was no report about that. So for me, that's the first disclaimer, and that's why I didn't say anything, because if the local journalists, the ones that are speaking with people at the club, that know the situations of a specific player, they had reported about Dafara signing for them like 10 days ago, and he signed yesterday. Young goalkeeper from Juve. Last season he was on loan at Avellino, so he's going to be the number one for them next season. So probably that shows that they are willing to start after this World Cup, especially because they need to monetize on that, to start a bidding war for Suzuki. So actually, the last couple of days, there were reports actually today locally by people in the local press or local media line about Suzuki linked to Leeds. After Di Marzio reported it, I need to specify that, because all the other ones that reported, especially Skira, I think his track record, he eats some good deals, in terms of knowledge about what moves inside Italy, especially in Serie B, maybe because there's good connections, around that. So when moves like in Serie B happen, in the second tier, he gets quite a few of them. But the big moves, in Serie A, not so much, honestly, not so much. And Longari, another one that put out a lot, but
He's the genesis of this story. This came from him first.
Yeah, he's the genesis of the story. He got quite a few in the past. He's not a consistent hitter in that sense, because usually the big name at Sport Italia, his publication is Alfredo Pedulla, who is the one that here the fans see it. They have this dichotomy, of Di Marzio against Pedulla. These are the two ones battling. Of course, above everyone is Fabrizio Romano, because he's the most reliable one in Italy about the Italian market.
The tap-in merchant.
Yeah, so there's also been people saying that he had quite a few rift. No, not rift. Rift is not the right word. Quite a few exchange on Twitter, with Skira, because Skira had accused him, of copying
stealing a story.
So everybody was saying, "You copied it." No, you copied that. I
He's
have
had a few at Plettenberg as well. To be fair, Romano, him and Florian Plettenberg have had a few as well in recent years.
A few clashes. Yeah, but in Italy, eventually, I rely on Fabrizio. Honestly, I rely on Fabrizio for the news about Italian clubs. But looking at Suzuki, when the local press starts to report, usually there's legs behind it, But they have reported links with Aston Villa, They have reported links with Leeds, but nothing as terms agreed. I think we're far off that one, especially because Parma are valuing him around 35 million euros, and that's quite a lot for a GK, especially considering the fact that Leeds have just signed a goalkeeper last season for 50 million. Lucas Perry, who was playing for Lyon the season before. Suzuki was playing for Parma. I think Lyon has a bigger ceiling, compared to exposure than Parma. So if the goalkeeper of the starting GK of Lyon was valued at 50 million, and the one of Parma at 35, now this season, it shows that after a very good season for Perry, 50 million. Very good season for Suzuki, where he was injured for a lot this season, for a large part of the season, 35. So that's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. I think they're aiming to start a bidding war, with because that there's a lot of exposure right now, to get the price around 30. So I think when I first heard the links, I said there's no way where we can be him, because he has clubs interested. Even a top club in Italy might be interested if they change the goalkeeper. And I have to be honest too. Last season, the first season he played for Parma, he moved from Sint-Truiden in Belgium. He had a lot of ups and downs, to be fair, because he was very aggressive. He used to come out a lot from the goal mouth. He used to be very performative, Like Melli at the start of his career, a lot of good saves, great saves, but he had the mistake once in a while, This season, he played less games because he was injured and they played Covi, when he returned in goal. He grew a lot. Even at the World Cup, he's playing very well. He's not a finished product, he's a player that is still developing, but I still think, that 35 is still a lot for a club. This morning, I have written on X, England 2, DR Congo 1, by the way.
Just thought,
came again. Yeah, score. Like I said before, they will have their Slovakia game, their Slovakia moment, like at the Euros, in the final moments, and here we go. But yeah, like I've written this morning, I think the first thing, if we want that to happen, if we are really in for Suzuki, is sell Perry and reinvest that money, also on the Suzuki deal, because I think eventually it might go to Aston Villa, to be fair, because if Emi Martinez goes to Juventus, I think Aston Villa might get Suzuki, I think there's also other clubs interested, maybe in the Bundesliga. Another league with Parma was Mandela Keita with Everton. I think Mandela Keita, if we cannot find a common ground with Southampton, with Shea Charles, like I said, I even mentioned, I think, some weeks ago here too, Mandela Keita, or on our podcast with Loki, I think Mandela Keita should be the backup to Ampadu, 100%, especially if he's valued around 20-25 millions,
Yeah, it would be an interesting one. Yeah, the Suzuki one is an interesting, because obviously Zetterstrom's been linked as well. He's at Derby, would cost significantly less. Romano has linked Leeds with Zetterstrom, so you think there's probably a shorter gap in terms of credibility in that, or truth in that story. So, but I'm with you. Unless Leeds know the situation of Carl Darlow, I don't see Leeds spending money on a goalkeeper unless they know where Darlow's staying or going, or they've already got a buyer for Lucas Perry, which again, it's still early enough in the window to see if that actually happens. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. The other one that's floating around, kind of came in really very loud initially and then just kind of fell off a cliff pretty much straight away, was Lloyd Kelly. Now, Lloyd Kelly obviously went from Bournemouth to Newcastle, was loaned to Juventus for a season, and then there was an obligation. The move was made permanent for 17-ish million pounds or euros in the summer. He's had a very unusual time in Italy. There's possibilities that he could be sold this summer. Juve are looking for around about 30 million quid, which is nearly double what they paid for him 12 months ago. And you can tell me if I'm right on this, under Thiago Motta, he was described as a flop. He was in and out of the team under Igor Tudor. He played a lot of games last season, turns like an oil tanker, isn't quick, and hasn't probably had the best of time in Italy. I don't personally see him as an upgrade on Pascal Struijk, but he's left-footed, and I think there's a very, very clear link as to where they pulled that one from. But what are your thoughts on this one? This one came out from Marco Conterio in Italy as well. So, the floor is yours.
Yeah, the man that linked us with him is someone that's based in Piedmont, in Turin. So that, like I said, it might be I think it might be a case that you are actually trying to, via also an intermediary, trying to offload him. So they're looking at the clubs that need a left-footed centre back, and we are there. Sometimes you just have to connect the dots. It's not like, okay, there's a link, they've been in contact. No, you just have to connect the dots and say, okay, look at the clubs that need someone like him. These are the natural link ups. In this case, also, the fact that also we had just lost our starting centre back. I think he's completely different from Struijk. Flop is the right term to describe his time in Italy. He played a lot of games, to be fair, especially also Thiago Motta, Tudor, and then Spalletti. He played quite a games because the other centre backs, apart from Bremer, all the other ones are not good. Gatti, Kelly, specifically too. All the defenders at Juve, the centre backs have struggled. Kalulu, also played as a fullback. I think Kalulu and Bremer are the two good ones in the mix, in the mix. But yeah, I think the only credible link and the fact that he's been linked with a return to the Premier League is the fact that he's good when he distributes the ball, but we need to remind ourselves that in Italy, you are not pressed.
No.
8 out of 10, you are not pressed when you are in possession. So you won't have the time, to stop the ball, look around like he does right now, and pass the ball. That's what Struijk usually did, quickly, very smoothly. I've seen him losing tons of aerial duels with the number 9s, the opposition number 9s. He's not quick at all. Not quick at all. I think the summary is that he thrived in a Bournemouth team that he developed into. When he moved to Newcastle after 6 months, they shipped him to Juve, because when he made the next step from that Bournemouth team that was willing also to sell him, because they were moving to the next step with the new strategy, new transfer strategy, and the new plan, sustainable plan, also new ownership too recently. When he moved to Newcastle, it didn't work out for him because there were better players there, And you have to imagine also, it shows you the state of Italian football. If a player that is flopping at Newcastle moves to Juventus, imagine that when maybe Newcastle had Andy O'Brien, for example, Andy O'Brien flops at Newcastle at the start of the millennium. Moves to you, Imagine, look how the tables have turned,
Listen, as an Irish person, the thoughts of seeing Andy O'Brien in the Juve shirt are scary. Like there's no version of that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm not very pro if there's a credible link regarding Kelly to Juve. I think it's the right fit for us, especially because he should be the one. Look, considering at his pace, if we're playing with a back three, he should be the one in the middle. The problem is that he will get absolutely destroyed by the Holland, the Šeško, Wissa, Thiago of the Premier League, in this category. For me,
yeah, it didn't seem very. Once you start looking into what his time is like in Italy, seeing what people actually over there said about him and at Juventus, and then again, not strong in the air, not quick. I mean, it doesn't tick. I mean, you've lost a player that's relatively strong in the air and is pretty quick. So, well, for a defender and stroke. So, yeah. And we're talking about one more player.
I also want to add that, of course, I think he will leave because it looks very, very likely that Juventus are adding both Tarik Muhamemovic and John Lukumi. At least one of the two. There's also rumors they will get both of them. I've seen people also linking, say, "Oh, go to Bologna and sign Lukumi for Leeds," because I think it's been very good. When he was at Bologna, played in the Champions League, Europa League. So I think if he will move from Bologna this summer, but will move to a club playing Europe. I think same for Muhamemovic, another player that was mentioned by me, when Sassuolo got promoted, and said, "Oh, there's this good player, I think we might try to sign him." We were still, I think, in the championship. We were still in the championship. I said, "Oh, there's that young player, there." But one of the, both moving to a club playing in Europe, at least, if not Juve, another one.
Yeah. All right, last one to talk about before we wrap it up. We'll go too long tonight. Julian Brandt has been an interesting one. We know Leeds have got interest in this one. We know Leeds have put an offer in front of his representatives. We were told positive talks have been held.
Yeah.
And then yesterday, his father is seen leaving the offices of Real Betis, where they have offered him to Real Betis, which doesn't give you a huge amount of confidence that they're interested in the move to West Yorkshire. If they're offering him out to anybody else, you've got an offer on the table, would suggest that he isn't really interested in him. Very good player. I'd love to have him. I've got a couple of good years still ahead of him. Doesn't feel like it's a likely one unless he has no other options, or European options, I should say.
I suggest not going to Real Betis because you get absolutely sunburned there. Because it's very pale like me, But talking seriously, I think he might get options because people tend to say, "Oh, yeah, he will have options." I think he will have options in the Europa League more abroad. So you'll have to wait like European competitions in Europe or the pool of playing week in and week out in the Premier League as a key player. Probably the crucial player next. If he signs for us, he's the crucial player for us. I think he's the star man, you know, because I've seen people say, oh, his legs are gone, you know, he's 30, he's not 35 or 36, you know, he's had 7 goals in the Bundesliga, scored 3 goals in the Champions League last season for Borussia. So it would be a difficult one. But Harry Wilson was a difficult one too.
It was, yeah.
If you can manage to sell him a project and put him at the center of the project to maybe have some good 4 years, you know, 3 years to the start, and then maybe a renewal, you know, to be a crucial player towards the second stage of his career in West Yorkshire, I think there might be a space between the wall and the door closing, you know, and we need to be in that specific space because it's been linked to Roma. Really be a start there. I doubt, to be fair, because we've seen another example. Of course, it was way older back then, but Mats Hummels, you know, it wasn't starting when he moved to Roma. Italian football is not in a great state, so I will advise against the move there. You know, I think in the Bundesliga, Dortmund didn't renew the contract. RB Leipzig, but he has players ahead of him. Bayer Leverkusen, he has players ahead of him. Freiburg, you are moving to. Is it really playing for? I know that I will get criticism for this, but is he really go to a lower club that's playing maybe in Europe, you know, or challenging for Europe like Freiburg did recently?
Yeah.
And of course now they have Manzambi playing week in and week out, you know, having a great World Cup for Switzerland. Yeah. Or for example, you know, Stuttgart. Again, you have other players ahead of you. So I think when you're looking, I don't know if there's an expression for that in England, you know, when you're counting the roses, you know, you're not counting the flowers, you know, the options. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the best option for him is going to the Premier League, yeah, eventually, because he will start week in and week out. It's something that similar to what we did, you know, when we signed certain players like Robin Koch and Diego Llorente back then, you know, because one was had, of course, interest from other German clubs that were playing to the level above, you know, so Europe. And Llorente was playing for Real Sociedad, so a club on the rise. But they decided to move to the Premier League, looking at the attraction of the Premier League, save for Rafa eventually, because
money.
Rand qualified for
looking
UCL.
At money.
Yeah, Rand had qualified for the first time for UCL, but he wanted to leave to move to the Premier League, to play in the Premier League. So I think if Brandt looks at his options, the best option eventually right now in his career is the Premier League. It's the Premier League because he can revive. He can not revive because revive is not the right term, because he was effective for Dortmund this season. Yeah. He can continue and take, you know, and enjoy a good second stage of his career, you know, in England, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like we haven't got a German in the side already, so you know, maybe that can have a word. I don't know how well they know each other, if at all, and have a chat with him. He's one that I'd love. I do think it is that one aspirational signing that we get every summer where we think we might get a chance to get, and then we don't. So when has to be said, and I have to keep saying this, in the last 6 months, Leeds have been historically non-Leedsy. So all the Leedsy things that normally happen didn't happen. So maybe that's a shift in it as well, and we'll see a change. I'd love to get him. Anyway, folks, we'll wrap it up there. Massive thanks to Andrea for taking time out of his evening to have a chat with us. Mate. Find Andrea over on Lucky Leeds on the Unfiltered Football podcast. Links for that will be down below. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the news. Somewhere over here there is a link for the video for the Andy Cousins interview from last night, if you want to get Andy's take on it. Pascal Struijk's house being emptied as we were talking. The Leeds hadn't announced that the deal had actually gone through yet, but he said there is activity in the house because he lives behind them. So if you want to watch that, you can, and get Andy's take on who Leeds should replace Pascal Struijk with at left centre back. Andrea, thanks very much for joining me. I really appreciate you.
Thanks, Joe, as always.